So agenda item one is the election of the VSBA president. And at this time, we will take nominations for the president position.
I would like to nominate for Diaz Smith. This is Barton's Eye.
Thank you, Bart. Are
And
there any,
Mark Clough would second.
and are there any other nominations? Okay, I don't see any others. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Looks like you are unanimously elected, Floor. Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody. Oh, thank you. I'm thrilled. Yeah, some of you had reached out, and I'm super thrilled. And it's an honor. I'm like, this is my favorite board, and I take it super serious. And I'm just grateful for your openness. I really see each of you, and I know that love is kind of a weird thing, but I think you know how I know each of you, and I try to communicate my best with each of you. And thank you for your support. And you're a great group of people. All we're here for the same reasons, for the value conversation that we all had together in the retreat was so important. We have a really full agenda, so I'm not planning on a speech or anything, but I just want to express my gratitude and I love working with our staff and with Sue. And thank you. We have a challenging year ahead of us, but I don't do it without you. And we're a great group of people, and I think that it's a very important moment, and it's so great that we are here together to do what is necessary. So with that, I don't have anything prepared, but thank you. I'm gonna get us like really started on the agenda, if that's okay with you guys. Because we have some reflection to do at the beginning of the meeting anyways. We're going to start on reflection on communications for the rural schools and how we are serving all our members, which would be a good sort of transition into our resolutions, because some of our resolutions also talk about that. So the idea, if you had a chance, I hope everybody had a chance to read the information in the packet. We included the letter from Tiffany and some others, and our response to them. So where we express our gratitude for the time and the openness that the time that they have spent in sharing their perspectives with us. So I think our role as VSBA is not to press for uniformity, right, but to sort of try to leverage all of that diversity of thought and the connectedness that we have and how we support each other. So, and this is such an important moment in Vermont, so, and in the nation as a whole. So how do we leverage? I took some notes in our last meeting, and we're stronger together. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts. Our idea was that we were bringing this to you. You guys had time to read that not memo, but the letters and the information. Sue has already reached out to the rural schools, and we saw them at the task registers meeting of the task force too. So we're hoping to continue that open conversation. And as I said to them that day, they were not really thrilled in talking to us. Be totally honest, I sort of cornered her a little bit, and then she was great. She was just like reach out and to Cheryl and let's talk. So with that, sort of any thoughts from the board, and how I want to make sure that you guys also feel like we are doing a good job as communicating, and what else would you add to this important question that we have for they, like you saw the email, right? So I don't need to read the email to you. So any thoughts? I thought that, just be mindful that if everybody wants to talk, we have a lot of items on the agenda, so we could go one by one, or just raise your hand if you have some thoughts. I see some hands, Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So, I mean, I did have a chance to read some of the communication that you shared. I think Right. The challenging thing here, right, is I mean, VSB has been an organization, we've been around for a while. We have a set process for pulling in the opinions and positions of varying school boards across the state, primarily through our resolutions process, but also through our regional reps. And, I think. I wonder if this is a time to sort of double down on making sure that all of our members are aware of those mechanisms for providing input to the VSBA, because I feel that they haven't been utilized to the extent that they maybe should have been. I will fully admit, like a good portion of the folks that were upset with VSBA come from the White River Valley Supervisory Union, which is my representative district from VSBA. I have not heard from any member in that district directly in the entire time that I have served on the VSBA board. And I don't know if that's just a lack of knowledge of Nancy and I being the regional rep and that they didn't know that they should reach out. Or if there's something else going on there. But I think, maybe now is the opportunity, and if we could utilize maybe a portion of the regional meetings, just to highlight, like these are the methods by which, VSBA solicits your feedback and your opinions. And folks should utilize those things. And I don't know that we need to necessarily be in a position right now of inventing new ways for people to have their voice heard with the VSBA when it seems like the existing mechanism hasn't been fully utilized.
Perfect. Thank you, Neil. So what I'm hearing you say is leaning into our processes with humility and purpose, and then utilizing a portion of the regional meeting to emphasize that. Did I get it right? Just as, okay.
Yep.
Others, I don't want to put people on the spot, but I'm like interested in different regions perspective. I don't know, Megan, because it's very different from like the rurals in. Any thoughts or?
Now I feel called out. You
Oh,
you're
no,
gonna
no,
ask
no, no,
me
no.
now.
I'm trying to like go for Nancy. I'm going
I
from.
agree with Neil, and as I was reading, I mean, as I was reading their concerns and other things, I thought, well, there's a process in place at the VSBA in order to have these things in place. So I understand the perspective, and I do think that it's I think that it's important that the VSBA has a voice that will that represents what's best for all Vermont students, and is able to be taken credibly in the legislature.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Clayton and then Mark.
I would just say that with RSCA, it's difficult to necessarily process what they wanted or how they did or didn't succeed, because they didn't show an agenda previously, and they just took credit for things that happened along the way with the things falling off of the legislation. They would pin the VSBA to a position, and then if something changed, they would say, you're still pinned to that position because you took it, and we advocated for something to fall off that was going to fall off anyway, and then therefore they get the credit. They took credit in our local meetings quite a bit for changes that occurred that were naturally occurring. And so because they're not working, they were working with some advocacy for some small groups, it's difficult to understand what their overall goal is past keeping a couple of specific small schools open, and which is fine, but it's a little bit difficult because they keep going back to those same exact schools.
Good point. Thank you, Clayton. Mark.
Just thinking about a process and what Neil said, there was a lot happening very quickly, and it makes you wonder how our process handles the speed in which everything changed. I mean, there was just no direction until absolutely at the end. And then a decision had to be made, what position were we going to take? And so I'm not sure how you handle that. I mean, I hear what Neil said. I hear what our process is, but that's kind of a longer term, medium term sort of reactionary, instrument. So I think we just need to think more about how we're going to reach out. And I think the regional meetings are very important. I don't think they're well utilized. I don't think people understand what they can be. I think a lot of stuff worked against us in terms of this being successful.
Thanks, Mark. Michael?
Yeah, I don't know if the legislative committee process even was well utilized. I guess things moved quickly. The theory, at least, was that the legislative committee could react more quickly than the entire board. And I don't think we actually had more than maybe 1 or 2 meetings the entire time about as this progressed. It seemed like there was really an opportunity there that was missed. The other thing is I think it's a little simplistic to think that RSCA is only a concern about a certain number of small schools. I mean, that may be that the individuals involved with those schools are very prominent. But remember that we have, I think, a well-founded fear out here of losing all of our schools. And I would be a little careful and that's why we joined. And I think it would be a little too oversimplifying it to say it's really just about those specific small schools which keep coming up. It's more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Michael. Linda?
I was not, we spent a lot of time talking to our children and students about how we communicate. I was not impressed with the letter. It was a little bit of bullying, I thought, and I was a little upset about that. I thought your response was open and kind. I think there are so many things that are going on right now that and fear. We try to find as many ways as we can to communicate, but we're not. And when people get frustrated, we are at a point now when people are yelling in board meetings and we're not hearing each other. So I think that it's just very difficult. I think you did a good job in answering these people. And I agree that it's not just about small schools. It's the fear of this whole thing is changing and we don't know where it's going. So fear can bring on a lot of, we just had a huge meeting last time in our Quarry Valley, and it was a blowout of community members. And the whole thing could have been handled, so much differently. But people are just very afraid and very angry right now, and they don't know. So I just think keeping it, because the two people that are from this board to our boards, we have a place where we talk about the VSBA during our meetings. I go to teachers a couple times, 3-4 times a year and talk about the VSBA, and I try to make it and give them an opportunity. I give them all the things. Here's how you can communicate with this group. Here's how you can communicate with this group. Here's the way to email, but it's overwhelming right now for people. It's overwhelming for everybody, for parents, for kids, for teachers, for us, for board members. It's overwhelming with, and it's so much more than just small schools. It's just so much more than small schools. But I thought, I wish they had had been good role models for kids by what they wrote, because I thought you role modeled very well back to them. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. Barbara, and I'm taking notes on what you guys are saying, and Debbie is too, and we'll summarize. And then we have some information to share. Maybe after Barbara, I'll have Sue share some information before we continue. Barbara? You're muted, Barbara, sorry.
I just wanted to build on what Michael said. I'd like to take a wider view rather than, I agree that some of the emotional baggage that comes with some of the upsetness that the people that represent the rural school, I can never get the initials right, the RSCA, you know, is masking, not masking, but is dominating, where I really think the overall feeling, it's not about keeping every little school open. I've talked to members of RSCA and lots of people, and everybody admits there has to be changes and there will be schools closing. But it's rather that I think that the people who left VSBA and others who are still members but feel that maybe VSBA is too complicit with the governor and the legislature in what is clearly a reduction of the democratic local school boards. And in fact, as I understand it, the supervisory unions as opposed to supervisory districts, which I believe that the VSBA's position was you weren't in favor of, you were more in favor of the districts. I might be wrong about that, but supervisory unions, it seems to me, are the only way to keep the local control of the schools. And I think that's what people are upset about. I think not just the Rural School Community Alliance, but people in our community, that's what everybody's talking about, is that what's going on here? You know, like who asked them to redo everything about the schools? And supposedly that's going to save money. And of course, we all know it isn't. So anyway, that's what I think.
Okay, I
don't
see
know
your
what to do about it, but I just wanted to.
and I think you and Michael are both saying similar things, and I'll summarize it at the end. Mel, and then we'll let Sue go. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I actually just had kind of a question. You know, we struggle sometimes with positions from the VSBA because we have such a unique situation, and we know that our struggles are different than the majority of the state, especially when it comes to independent schools. But we stay with the VSBA because of the resources that you offered that are kind of required by law, such as opportunities for training with our chair and our superintendents, et cetera. So I guess my question is, not being members now of the VSBA, how does that work? And will they continue to have access to all of this? Or, you know, and if not, I feel like that's kind of the maybe one point that I don't know that you missed it because you did state it, but you know, it's more than every individual board's needs and their districts. It's about the entire governance process of school boards. So I guess I'm just curious, and maybe Sue has some information on how that meeting went.
Which meeting are you referencing, Mel?
Well, you said that you had a meeting with the 12 members.
Oh, yes.
In the
yeah.
listening, you know, did it come up? Do they, you know, are they still now essentially just non-due paying members with still full access to all of the other resources? And not that I want to cut anybody out, I'm just curious.
So the only the only SU that is not a member is the White River Valley SU. And some of them had signed on to that letter, but I don't believe any of them actually came to the meeting. I might be wrong about that. But they do not have access they no longer have access to any of the protected areas of our website. So they don't have access to the model policy manual or any other information. The negotiations toolkit has a lot of valuable information. Any area of the website that's protected, they do not have access to. They're not receiving our weekly emails any longer. And they basically don't have access to any services from the VSBA other than they can attend the conference, but the charge is twice as much as it would be for a member to attend. But I have a lot of other information that is relevant to this topic that I'd love to share if that's okay, Floor. Okay, great. So next week I have a meeting with a communications consultant, and one of the things that I'll be discussing with him, his name is Chris Haran, and he has helped other school board associations with communications, including Connecticut and Massachusetts. And one of the things I want to discuss with him is the sort of a communications plan for you all as regional reps to communicate with your regions. In addition to a communication plan for the VSBA, so that the general public has a better understanding of what we do. So, we've definitely seen that all of you have done an amazing job with increasing your emails to the regions. And that has been very much appreciated. And I think this situation also shows us that like we need more than just emails. So that's what I'll be discussing with Chris Haran next week, and I'll be happy to tell you all about it at the September meeting. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we are making plans for the regional meetings, which are all happening on September 30th on that same date. We're going to do it the same way that we did last year, and have everyone come together, but go into breakout rooms for each region. And I welcome that suggestion you had, Neil, about the regional meetings, utilizing a portion of it to highlight the ways that we solicit opinions. And the other exciting news is that the co-chairs of the redistricting task force, Martine Gulick and Edie Granning, have agreed to come and do a presentation to our membership about the task force, its duties, an update of where they are at that time, important data that they've looked at, that type of thing. And I asked the co-chairs to help us come up with a set of questions that we could put to the members that come to those regional meetings that would actually help inform the task force. So I'm hoping that that will draw a lot of people to come to the regional meetings so that they can give that type of input to the task force. I think that will be very, very valuable. And it also is a form of a survey, which is something that this letter asked for. I think it's a meaningful way for our members to get input to that very important redistricting task force. So I'm happy to tell you all of that and answer any questions that you have about it or hear any suggestions that you all have.
Great, thank you. So if there's no other hands up, we took notes, and I think this is a conversation that we will continue to have. And then Mel, I just wanted to add that another thing that we found out is that only three, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, or only 3 school board members from the White River Valley had an account. It had a login account with VSBA. So they were already not like, you know what I mean? Like it just tells a lot of how they were actually participating. I don't mean that in a, that is, I have no judgment. What I mean is like, like they were not engaged, you're not engaged in a process that you're complaining about. I mean that respectfully, but you know what I mean? So, so which is important, right? So, okay. I'm gonna get us back on. We're actually staying on time. Any other thoughts on that? Okay, I think we have enough guidance for right now, unless there's any other thoughts. I'm gonna move into the report from the resolutions committee because we have a lot to go over. But before we dive into the resolutions, a few notes about the process. As a reminder, there were a couple of questions from some of you, so I'm gonna go ahead and like read the whole thing. As the resolutions committee is charged with making recommendations to the board on each proposed resolution. Under the bylaws, the committee must make a recommendation to pass or do not pass each resolution submitted by the member school board. In the alternative, the committee may submit a proposed resolution to the full board with a statement that it takes no position on the proposal. The board then considers the committee's recommendation and makes its own recommendation to the full membership. All resolutions from member boards submitted to the resolutions committee, regardless of the position that the committee or the board, must be placed by the board before the membership at the annual meeting. The full membership one delegate from each supervisory union and supervisory district in good standing. And in good standing means that they're a member. We've had a lot of feedback about what good standing means. There's nothing, no rules are broken. They just decided to not pay their dues. It votes on all the proposed resolutions at the annual meeting on October 23rd. Mark your calendars. The work on the resolutions committee is the first step, as you all know, majority of you, in a long process. This year, there were 11 proposed resolutions, 10 were submitted by school boards, and one was proposed by the resolutions committee. As they read the other resolutions. The committee notified each submitting board of their recommendations following the first meeting, and we received 4 revised proposals. Keep in mind that the proposed resolutions were submitted before Act 73 was enacted. Our context is a little bit different now. So I want to thank the members of the 2025 Resolutions Committee. Mark Claw chaired the committee, the Resolutions Committee. Thank you, Mark. Lisa Meiser, Michael Einers, Bart Bezio, Suzanne Bach, Gaston, Jim, Salzgiver, and Joe, and Megan, and Neil Odell, and Laura Williams. Thank you for submitting boards, and to Sandra Cameron for facilitating all this work. Sandra, your notes, everything, and all of the meetings. And thank you to, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes in order for us to plan even before the committee. And then I really appreciate the process. This is one of the most important processes that we have, that we need to lean in, just as Neil was reminding us. I wanted to talk the bylaws specific to 2 different types. Let's do the resolutions first, Sue, and then go into the bylaws, or should we do the bylaws first?
We don't need to do the bylaws.
Yeah, there's nothing on the bylaws, but I'll just tell you what happened. The bylaws have 2 specific different types of resolutions, the regular and the continuing resolutions. Each position shall vote by the resolutions or continuing resolutions. Continuing resolutions are statements of the association or policy who are ongoing and permanent. And we have voted on those several times. We refer to resolutions that are not continuing as regular resolutions. Resolutions should be statements specific to specific positions on behalf of the association and shall be in effect until the next annual meeting, when they may be deleted, continued, or amended by the vote of the membership. So based on this, the Resolutions Committee took 2 tasks. One was to make sure each of the new resolutions brought forward by member boards and the Resolutions Committee are designated as regular or continuing. We'll cover all these categories of each resolution as we consider them. The second task for the Resolutions Committee was to review current, regular, and continuing resolutions and make recommendations to amend, delete, or continue. I wanted to share with the board that the Resolutions Committee has been utilizing an equity tool. This was also a question that came up. This is for the past few years. It's been at least 3 to 4 years that we've been doing this. The committee reviews the tool ahead of the meeting and before starting its work, and it utilizes the equity questions and considerations during the discussion and the proposed resolutions. We had some confusion in past meetings when taking motions on resolutions that try to account for the Resolutions Committee recommendation. So for simplicity today, I recommend that regardless of the committee's recommendation, all motions should be made to the board's recommendation. Like I move that the board recommends resolution 1, for example, pass as a continuing resolution. So for the motion, if you want the board to recommend the resolution passes, vote yes. And if you want that recommendation to not pass, vote no. Is that clear? Smart. Okay. As we go through the resolutions, I will ask the chair of the Resolutions Committee, Mark, to read the resolution just on the be resolved part in where areas, not the where areas language, and provide the Resolutions Committee recommendations. So Mark, I'll pass it to you, but first, Mr. Inners, do you have a question?
Is it in order to just make a motion to just adopt the Resolutions Committee report in total?
No, I think it is important, especially after the conversation that we just had about the rural schools, to go through each resolution instead of just accepting the committee's work. And I know the committee does the work of the board, but it will simplify the discussion if everybody read the packet. But I think it would be important for us to go through the first part of all of the resolutions that's similar, then read the resolution from, I'll let Mark lead that part because we have sort of made a process instead of having, unless the board is the pleasure of the board. So unless the board feels like they just want to accept the recommendation of the resolutions committee, I don't know. 'Cause
Or
where we are.
what's interesting is there might be 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 people that weren't on the resolutions committee that are here.
That's true.
All the rest of us have been hashed this through. That doesn't mean we should.
Oh, that's true.
So I'm wondering what those 5 people think. I mean, we could take these.
I will, I could, what I would recommend is just having maybe the board by a show of hands vote how they want to handle this, if they want to just pass the recommendations of the committee or if they want to talk about each recommendation. So I understand, Michael, is that you're wanting to just do it as a slate. Was I reading that right?
Yeah, just adopt the entire report as a unit.
So that would I would leave it. It's not what I was planning on doing, but it's the pleasure of the board. It will certainly make our meeting shorter, but most of the people that are at the meeting today read the packet, so I'm not concerned. But
Or
yes.
after you have a motion, open it up for discussion. Just see if there's anybody that feels strongly that we should be tackling one by one.
Okay. Clayton, you have a hand up and we don't have a motion yet, so I'll let you go ahead.
So my only question would have been about redundancy. So there was a couple of that seemed a little bit redundant and how they were addressed. And so that would be my only question about accepting the whole packet. I know the committee's done the work, but that the one thing. Past that, I don't vehemently disagree with any of them.
Okay.
Why don't I make a
Yeah.
recommendation that we pass the slate, and then if anybody wants to amend, if we want to pass that, everybody wants to amend the recommendation and pull one out, then maybe we could do that.
I will second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mel, second by Michael. Does the committee want to pull any? Okay, so I'll take it for a vote. All those in favor, Sue, before I
just wanted to point out that there was one correction needed.
Yes.
So we would want to make sure that that was included if you're going to do it as a slate.
Yeah, the Peachum resolution has to be a regular resolution.
Do you want me to explain? So on the first page on your chart, your summary, that it is correct, that it would be a regular resolution, but in the resolution itself, I think it's page 12, it says continuing. So we would need to correct that.
That is true. Do you want to make that amendment, Gaston?
Actually, no, I just wanted to make a comment.
Yeah.
So I guess what I wanted to say was that resolution 2, which is a resolution that Barbara and I had worked on, the committee took no position, but we are certainly prepared or will be prepared to discuss this at the annual meeting. And the reason why the committee decided to take no position, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, was that there seemed to be some redundancy. So there is a possibility of combining some of these redundantly focused resolutions into a more focused one. Did I say that right? Those are people on the committee. I think that was the message that I took home. Over.
Yes, that's correct. And
what do my notes say?
so, Mel, would you accept a friendly amendment
To
clarify? It's just a regular. It's just semantics.
yes, I will absolutely accept their amendment to clarify that it was a regular resolution. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm wondering if I should withdraw the motion if there's actually a discussion around wanting to combine some, we need to discuss all of them in order to do that.
It's not, but let me get Clayton to go if it's still in discussion, and then Michael, and then I can explain if it's not explained there.
Am I seconding her motion to continue discussion, or am I asking a question?
You're asking a question. We're still in discussion on the motion on the floor to pass them as a slate.
So my question would be, would you want to have all of these updated so that they don't say H 454, they say Act 73? Because several of them say H 454, which is now Act 73.
But, and that's what we were saying at the beginning, that it was before it became Act 73 that they were submitted. So we wouldn't, we can't necessarily do that unless we would send them back to the,
Okay, just making sure.
Michael?
Yeah, I don't believe we combine or edit other than for corrections at this stage. That if they came from a board, they're what they sent us. And we can't delete them or substantially amend them.
Floor, if I could, the redundancy is around
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
resolution that's already in place. Or that we think kind of handles what resolution number 2 said. Not that one of these resolutions overlaps.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I will call the question for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to pass the resolution as a slate with the recommendation from the resolution committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Or raising
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Linda, any abstentions? Okay, well, I think the majority has it. Linda, okay with that?
No, I was eyeing, I just didn't get to my audio. I'm eyeing, I'm not opposing.
So it's unanimous, which is really how I wanted. So perfect. Okay. All right. All right. See, even Mel is smiling. Really good. Okay. Wow. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the Resolutions Committee. The packet also was so clear. So thank you, Sandra, for all that work. Okay, so now I'm having to move my packet around because I had too many notes. Okay, we actually had put a break right there, but now we don't need a break after the Resolutions Committee. Correct? Yeah, so now we can, the report for the Executive Committee on the bylaws. See, I've been wanting to talk about the bylaws and we are here. Everybody okay? We're not going to take a break right now. We'll wait because I think we can get done pretty quickly now. So according to Article 10 is C of the bylaws, the Executive Committee conducts an annual review of the bylaws of the association, recommends any bylaws changes to the Board of Directors for action by the membership and association as its annual meeting. The Executive Committee did review the bylaws and determined that it has no recommendations for changes to the bylaws this year. So because there's no recommendations, I don't think, do we need a motion today, Sue? I don't think so, but because there's no recommendation, there's no changes.
Right. No, you don't need
Right.
a motion.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to give this to Mel to give us a report of the awards committee. Thank you, Mel.
I just shot myself in the foot. I was going to go prep myself a little bit during dinner. No. So our awards committee met quite a bit this year. I think we, redefined some of the awards, most specifically the one that we're talking about tonight, which is the Board Excellence Award. We sent out a call for recommendations for this award. I want to say it was back in April. We received 6 different submissions. All of them were, I would say, relatively strong contenders. It looks like it was exciting to see that there's school boards across the state that are working hard and people are proud of the work that they're doing. Colchester School District Board certainly distinguished itself above the others. They had a tough year. They passed a huge bond for improvements in repair. And one of the letters of recommendation came directly from the architect that they work with that was very impressed with how well they worked with their community in figuring out the needs and then getting the word out. And as you know, passing a bond right now is pretty huge. So a facilities bond, I want to say it's 115 million facilities bond. So though I have trouble with zeros, but I'm pretty sure that's it. So that is what we were recommending to the board. And I guess if you have any questions, Neil and I were both on the board. Jack, who I don't think is here right now, was on the board, but his board was also recommended. So he stepped back when we got to that process of deciding who we thought would rise to the top.
Thank you.
Actually, I mean committee, I'm saying board, but I mean.
Yeah, no, we got it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mel. Any questions for Mel? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move into regional meetings organization for elections, and I'm gonna give this to Sue.
Do we need to vote on that to accept it?
Oh,
Or
that's true, that's true, that's true, to accept the recommendation of the,
Yeah.
so.
And Neil, I don't know, did you have anything else to add to that, Neil?
Nothing other than nicely done, Mel.
Thanks.
So would one of you guys want to make a recommendation?
Sure, I will recommend that the board, I guess, approve our recommendation for the Colchester School District Board to receive the Board Excellence Award for 2025.
Great, thank you, Mel. And second?
Second by Neil.
Second by Neil. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
I think the ayes have it. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion, oh, you're
No,
abstaining?
I was going to interrupt also. Once you finish that.
Okay, all those, so the motion carries. Mel, do you want to?
I think we have a really quick thing. Debbie, do we need to approve the minutes for our meetings? I know that we didn't do that at our last meeting. Okay, great. Never mind. Just kidding.
Okay, now for real, I'm gonna give it to Sue so she can walk us through the regional meetings for elections. And we
Sure.
have questions for you, so I'm gonna mute myself.
The regional meetings are going to be held remotely on September 30th. We will be highlighting the regional meetings regularly in our weekly emails, and the link is at the top of our website homepage. Amy did a great job of having a banner at the top that has links to the conference, the annual meeting, and the regional meetings. Please register as soon as possible for your regional meeting. In your board packet, there is a page with a list of the regions and the expiration of terms of regional representatives. So if your term is expiring next year in 2026, you are going to be responsible for running the business meeting and the election for your region. So I'm going to read off this list, and this is the list of people who are running the regional meetings this year. And I will be emailing a script to you beforehand, so that will help. You don't have to stick strictly to the script, but at least it gives you a little bit of direction. So the people that will be running the meetings are Mark Koenig, Jim Salzgiver, Emily Reynolds, Megan Metzler, Michael Inners, Barbara Postman, Mark Clough, Linda Smith, Laura Williams, Joe Winrich, and Neil Odell. And then the following board members' terms are expiring this year, and you will need to run again if you would like to continue serving on the board. The only two people I have heard from about their plans are Tara Arneson, who has indicated that she will be running again, and Martine Gulick, who resigned from the board earlier this week and will not be running again. So as I call out your name, if I'm going to pause, and hopefully you'll be able to indicate, yes, you will be running again, or regretfully, if you know, if you will not. And not everyone is here, but I'll give it a whirl. So, and I can't see who everyone who is here. So if I say a name and they're not here, it's because I can't see everything. Suzanne Buck.
I'm planning on it, but I want to talk to Mark before I say for sure.
Okay. Tentative yes on Suzanne?
Yes.
Okay. Next one is Mel Virgilio.
I'm honestly undecided at this point. I'm going to look and see what else we can find in Bennington. We notoriously don't have representatives from our southern region. So if I can get someone, I think it'd be appropriate to bring them on.
Okay. Bart Bazzaio.
Count me in.
All right. Jack McCarthy. I don't think Jack's here. Is that right? I'll email Jack. Gaston.
I'm really undecided, but I will go with a yes. Yeah, I'll go with a yes, but I really am undecided.
Okay. Clayton.
I'm super new. I just got here and I stepped onto the board from somebody on our same SU that Mark Clough is on, and we represent 11 districts, and it's just two people from the same SU for years. And I wonder if maybe part of our representation problem in Kingdom South is that only one supervisory union is represented. That said, I'll go stand in the room, but if somebody else is a willing candidate that seems like they're energetic, I would then champion that person to join on just for the sake of diversity. But if nobody else stands up, I'm standing.
Okay. Lisa Meiser. Is Lisa on? I thought I saw her sign on.
She was on the phone for a little while, but I don't see her now.
Oh, yeah, it looks like she's here.
Oh, she is there. Yeah, the phone is
Yeah.
still here. Lisa?
Well, I'll come back to Lisa. Dan MacArthur. I think Dan is not here tonight, right?
No, he's not on.
Okay. And Nancy Russell.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. That is very helpful. So for those regions with open seats, such as Western Chittenden, where Martine Gulick held a seat, if you represent any of those regions, and I'll send you all an update with all this information. If you represent any of those regions, you're the other regional rep. We ask that you please solicit interest from school board members who are interested in serving on the VSBA board, and we'll certainly put some notices out in our weekly update too to inform regions about this process. If someone is interested, they should email Amy and me to let us know of their interest and include a photo and a short bio. And in addition to the elections at the regional business meeting, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a presentation by the co-chairs of the school district redistricting task force and the opportunity to provide input to the task force. And we are in the process of creating a model email for you to use to email the members in your region, encouraging them to attend their regional meeting. Amy will notify you when it is in your regional communication spreadsheet. And if there is an open seat in your region, we suggest adding language indicating that so that members who are interested can submit their information to us ahead of the regional meeting. And it looks like Mel has a hand raised. Go ahead, Mel.
I understand that you probably want that information ASAP, but do you have some kind of a drop dead date or, when it would be really uncomfortably too late for somebody else to run?
That's a great question. I think it would be very, very helpful to know at the latest by the September VSBA board meeting.
Okay.
And that gives us, let's see, the September VSBA board meeting is on September 10th. So that still gives us, 20 days until the regional meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I had for the regional meetings.
Yeah, and because we're running a little bit early, we were gonna have Herb join us for the input on the Commission of Future Public Education. Sue, I'm wondering if we should skip that and wait for Herb to be with us. Does that make sense?
Yes. I have emailed him to let him know that he should join as soon as possible. I think he told me that he couldn't join before 6:30, and we thought this meeting was possibly going to go as far as 8 o'clock. So I thought he would be here in plenty of time, but it might be that we just have to send him the recording if
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But
if he can't.
for now, I'm gonna skip that one just to see
Okay.
if by any chance comes and go. I'll see your hand, Mark, so I'll talk to you about that. But let's move into the strategic monitoring plan, and then we'll come back to that one. Is that okay, board? Just to maybe Herb will be able to join us. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, Clayton and I have agreed we're going to send out an email to our region again. And it's a process we went through this spring when we had the resignation. And we had 4 or 5 candidates come forth. And then Flor and Sue and I made a decision on who is going to be the best candidate for the board. So that's kind of the process. If people are doing this. You have any more to say on that, Flora?
Just to clarify, Mark, we did not make the decision. The board made a decision. We brought the candidates to the board and the board recommended.
Good point.
So we interviewed, just like we plan with you. I just don't want to make any illusions that Sue and I
No,
were,
you're
like,
right.
'cause we
You're
were
right. I forgot.
in transparency. We talked to you so that you guys could communicate with your region. You guys presented us with some candidates. We brought the candidates to the board, and the board made a decision on who's from their recommended candidates we interview. Do you remember that, board? I don't want to. Yeah. Okay.
I do now. My mistake. You're absolutely right.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I just wanted to clarify. I don't want anybody to think that Sue and I appointed your member. Okay. So let's move into the strategic plan, Sue, if that's okay, and then we'll go back to number 9.
Sure. So the strategic plan monitoring report begins on page 36 of your board packet, and we focus on one goal area at each meeting. Today, we're going to focus on the first goal area, which is engagement. And a brief reminder about how the report is set up. There are 4 goals in your strategic plan. Those are at the top of the report. And then for each goal, there are objectives on the far left of the page. And for each objective, there are key results in the middle of the page, identified by the staff as ways to reach those objectives. And then finally, on the far right of the page, the staff reports on activities and progress for each key result. So the engagement goal is increase and improve engagement with members and interested parties. And if you look at pages 37 through 39 of your board packet, we'll work our way down from the goal to the 2 objectives under that goal to the key results under each of those objectives. On the far left on page 37, you can see the first objective under the engagement goal, which is increase engagement with local school board members. And to the right of that objective on pages 37 through 38 are the 5 key results the staff has developed to achieve the objective of increasing engagement with local school board members. The first key result under that objective has been updated by the staff, so I wanted to let you know about that. The previous version of this key result was about doubling the annual communications between all of you as VSBA's regional representatives and local school board members in your regions. And you all helped us meet that goal, and it became very clear this year that more robust and different methods of communications are needed between you as regional representatives and local school board members. And so since we met the goal, we've updated this key result. So it now reads, by June 30th, 2026, develop a communications plan for the VSBA regional representatives to increase member engagement with the VSBA. And that's what I was talking about when I mentioned earlier the meeting that I'm having with the communications consultant next week. Activities and progress on this key result. In FY25, we had over 60 regional representative communications go out, and that was more than double our number of communications in FY24. So as I mentioned, we exceeded the goal. We made improvements to the tool to make it easier for VSBA board members to easily send out and track communications. And again, we're going to be working in FY26 to develop a communications plan with timely and engaging messages and other ways to connect with your regions. Moving to key result 1.1.2, that one is about the annual conference, and it says by June 30th, 2026, increase school board member participation in the VSBA annual conference with growth of 10% year over year. We've been seeing some good growth in the past few years in the attendance at the conference, and wanted to let you know that registration is now open for this year's conference, and we ask that you help us to spread the word. The theme of it is Partnership in Action, Leading as One Governance Team. And that is, the superintendent and the school board working together. On October 29th, we're having the board officer superintendent training and a banquet dinner. And then the conference itself is on October 30th, and registration opened 2 days ago on Monday. I'm going to move on to key result 1.1.3. This one is about the awards program and states by December 31st, 2025, increase the nomination of member districts in the VSBA awards programs from 2 in 2022 to 12 in 2025. And we had 6 nominations this year, so we didn't get 12, but we really we tripled the rate of nominations. So we're pretty happy with that. And I think we're on a good path to increase the number of nominations in future years. And I really wanted to thank Debbie Stingeiser and the awards committee for all their work this year. They created a new application process that includes new criteria and new forms for submitting nominations. And it really paid off. And we look forward to seeing the awards program continue to grow. Whew, okay, key result 1.1.4 is about the weekly update emails and states by June 30th, 2026, increase the open rates of the weekly email by 3% month over month. Our activities in progress under this key result are that we had a median increase in our weekly email open rates of 2% over the course of FY25. And we are going to continue to work to improve the look and the feel of the weekly updates to make them more engaging and easier for members to quickly hone in on the information that they need. And that's another topic that we'll be bringing up with the communications consultant. KR 1.1.5 is about the collective bargaining database and states by December 31, 2026, provide resources such as the negotiations toolkit and training to support school board members as informed and effective negotiators and measure member usage and satisfaction. In FY25, our negotiations toolkit had 391 total hits for an average of 36 per month. And we're going to continue to update that toolkit in FY26 and work to determine the aspects that are being most utilized and most helpful to our membership. So with that, I have covered all of the key results under objective 1.1 in the engagement goal, which again is increase engagement with local school board members. And the next time we cover this goal area, we'll focus on objective 1.2, which is engage with other interested parties. And I'll hand it back to you, Flor.
Thank you, Sue. So any feedback as Sue started this, she asked a question, so are the topics that in the report, other topics that we should consider? You have the question. So are there any topics that you think belong in the key results that the staff should consider, or is there any information that you would like to be reported, or any other questions as we are always trying to figure out how to get more engagement from you guys on the reports from the strategic plan. So that was the point of the question. So I don't want to put anybody in the spot. We're doing really great with time. I see Gaston has his hand up, so I'm going to start with him.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hey, thanks, Sue, for doing this. I like the tracking tool, and I like how you go through it. My question is, I think it's awesome that the VSBA can track the open rate of the updates. I personally find those updates to be incredibly helpful, and I actually use them when I brief our board, the big NCSU board. My question is this: is it possible to track the open rate of the regional representative emails or messages that are sent out as well? I don't know what's behind all of that, and I don't know the technology well enough, but it certainly would somewhat be eye-opening, because I think for us, I think Barbara would agree, the number of responses that we've gotten, I think we can count on one hand. And it just would be really interesting to find out if people are actually opening these things, or if they're, if they're not opening the VSBA update, then I seriously doubt they're opening the regional representative emails. That's my only comment, but thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Gaston. Amy's on vacation this week. She's probably the best person that we could have to answer that question. I think the challenge might be that you all don't have VSBA emails. You have your own email. So I'm not sure that we would be able to track that, but I can certainly ask her and we can look into that.
It's a great idea, Gaston. So question back to you just before letting Mel and Michael go. If we, all board members now have the ability to get VSBA addresses now, though, right?
VSBA email addresses?
Yeah, no, or no, okay.
No, we don't have, I mean, we could do that if you would like, we could do that. There would definitely be a cost to it. And I think that we talked about it at one point and several people said that they didn't want to have another email address to manage, but it's certainly something that could be done. We do have separate emails for the employer commissioners that do the statewide bargaining.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I was confusing Mark going to email. Yeah, okay. Okay. Michael.
Yeah, I do think that actually having it not come from a VSBA email may improve the open rate. Not because people necessarily avoid our email, but because it's less likely to get caught in a spam filter, and it's less likely to sort of look like something that they get all the time. Right. So I think there's actually some value to having some variety in how we send out the emails.
Thank you, Michael. Mel?
I'm sure Amy can help you with this, but one quick trick that was actually discussed at one of your conferences a couple years ago is that instead of giving us all the information to put in the email, have it be a link that goes to a site or a page, and that's how you can track those specifically, because you can't get read rates if we're sending them out, right? And I wonder too if there are, one way to increase engagement might be, and this might be too much of a labor of love, but offering opportunities monthly to stop in at meetings around specific topics. I know a lot of meetings have Zooms open to the public for open meeting law now anyway. Just like we're having Herb come in, it might be worth offering a 10-minute VSBA recap at any of our meetings from anybody that requests it. Jim does a great job at our meetings, but he's not at all of the other meetings for our region, right? So just putting that out there.
Thank you, Mel. Any other thoughts? Okay. I'm gonna have you guys do a motion for the consent minutes, and then I'm gonna go back to 9. I still don't see Herb here, but could I have a motion for the consent agenda minutes of June?
Yeah, this is Gaston. I'll make that motion. Oh, sorry,
Okay,
Mel.
Gaston and Mel seconding it. Any changes or any edits to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hear none, the minutes have been approved. Now we're gonna move, sorry. Sorry, now my moving back to number 9. Should we just go for it, Sue? Since if Herb comes, we would still let him speak.
Yes.
But
I think he was mostly planning to listen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the input to the Commission on Future Public Education is one of its duties is a process for a community served by a school to have a voice in the discussion regarding the school closures and recommendations for that process. That was one of the questions that was asked Herb was asking us for input. We thought it would be important to not just have we shared this with the executive committee, and the committee had a little bit of a discussion, and we felt as an executive committee that it was important to have each of you have that question asked. And I was going to go just around to give a voice to everybody and make sure that if you had something to say, you don't have to say anything, but if you have any feedback. So it's a process for a community served by a school to have a voice in the decision regarding the school closure, and recommendations for that process shall entail. What are, so it's just an open question. And he was looking for feedback from us. I feel really strongly that it depends on the context where you are, but I want to give the voice to each of you. I see that Mel has her hand up, and I was just going to go across the screen. And if you would have nothing to say, don't stress about it either.
Yeah, I
Mel.
actually just had a clarifying question. Flor, I'm not fully sure that I understand the distinction between the two committees.
Between
The
the
one Herb is appointed to,
Oh,
he
no,
to
he's
consult
appointed to
with.
the Commission of the Future of Public Education. So remember that first committee that was created? He's not part of the task force. There's the task force for redistricting and the task force for the wards. This is the Commission for the Future Public Education. We originally had Nicole Mays was our appointee, and Megan was the chair for that committee. And Megan, Nicole, and Michael Lightlighter resigned. The committee is now the Committee for the Future of Public Education, which is like, it would be now 2 years almost. It's chaired now by Jay Nichols. And Herb is our VSBA appointee representative, and also sits on the steering committee for the work. The work of the Commission of Future of the Public Education has been narrowed down. I was not able to attend to the last meeting, so this is a better question for Sue, because it was a great meeting. And my understanding, Sue, is that with this much narrower approach, from what Herb let us know, it was a better discussion, and they sent the specific questions.
Okay, yeah, that
That's
was.
why we're talking about it. It has nothing to do with, they are giving feedback it has nothing to do, right? It's all interconnected. So don't get me wrong. It has something to do because it's all interconnected, but it's part of them creating that vision. Sue, after I make it really confusing, probably go ahead.
Is the question what the commission's duties are now, the Commission on the Future of Public Education?
Yes, and I think I understand, because I mean, we obviously talked about this a little bit in our district, because Herb was part of our district before he retired from our district, or since he moved. But I guess my question is specifically, I understand they should be working with the redistricting task force, but they are not part of. So I didn't know if it was actually in law. I haven't paid attention specifically what that connection should be. And if you're saying the focus is narrowed, maybe that answers my question.
Yeah, I can tell you what their charge is. So their charge is recommendations for what roles, functions, or decisions should be a function of local control, and what roles, functions, or decisions should be a function of state level control. That's first. Second, necessary updates to the roles and responsibilities of school district boards and the electorate. Third, a process for a community served by a school to have a voice in decisions regarding school closures, and recommendations for what that process shall entail. That's what we're talking about tonight. And then fourth is a process for monitoring the implementation of this act, which is Act 73, in a manner that is transparent and public facing. So those are the four duties of the commission. And I think there's also like a catch-all as well. But the most recent meeting of the commission was on August 4th, and it was held at the Long Trail School. And Debbie was there. Debbie and I were both there. Debbie provided an excellent presentation to the commission on the roles and responsibilities of school boards that went beyond just what boards are responsible for by law, but it talked about the 6 pillars in our essential work of Vermont school boards and how boards do that work. I hope that answers your question, Mel.
It does, thank you. It just helps paint the picture a little more clearly.
Okay, with that, Any thoughts? Michael?
I'll jump in. I always want to jump in. I would start with obviously the sort of the core due process, which is notice and opportunity to be heard. I think it's important that if a school board is considering closing a school, that there be notice to the communities affected and that there be an actual hearing in the communities affected. At a minimum, that's the bare minimum, I think. And then it'd be required to happen, not just be sort of suggested. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I know that there's a lot of resistance to requiring a vote. But I don't think it's hopeless to have a vote. I don't, those who think that, oh, if you have a vote, it'll never pass. Not my experience. We have no problem at all passing a vote in Alma. And although we haven't held a vote in North Hero because it's sort of a peculiar way we got to it, I'm actually reasonably confident that if we did hold a vote, it would also pass. So I think, there's some value, there's some reason to suggest that they actually still be a vote, just like there are in most of the articles of agreement.
Thanks, Michael. I'm gonna just pick, is that okay? I'll just go through my, I'm gonna go to you, Gaston, you're next, and then Neil.
So I'm going to piggyback on what Michael said, and when you talk about the vote, we had a meeting this past week where we're looking at possibilities for redistricting and what that would look like, and putting together a plan. And one of the things that I had mentioned was that, or that the group as a whole was concerned about was whether or not the general public really understood what exactly this education transformation meant and could mean. And I was thinking of a survey that was done early on, and when we moved back to Vermont on town meeting day, and subsequently found out, I think it's called the Doyle surveys. And this was Senator Doyle, and he would send out these questions, and they were very, very simple. And to me, I think that the task force is good to talk to boards and sort of focus on that. But push comes to shove, it's the general public that needs to understand what these implications are. And so, to me, I think that what would be really helpful for the commission is, when they start talking about this process, is to really identify what proportion of the state of Vermont general public, the voters, actually understand what's at stake here. I'm not really sure a lot of people understand that, with a foundation formula, a small community like Troy, when you look at the Joint Fiscal Office calculations, the modeling, our tax rate could go up 19%. I just don't understand. I don't feel comfortable with a board, making all of these decisions when, in fact, the general public sort of needs to kind of weigh in as to how they feel. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Gaston. Neil, and then Linda.
I will admit I don't have, my thoughts are not fully formed on this yet, but I do think, Flora, that a process for a local community to voice an opinion, I think is certainly a good thing. I mean, something that we want to have. If I have a concern, though, I think that I think that there needs to be some sort of rubric system around, like what would could a local, or could a local community just say, no, we don't want to close, and therefore they do not close? Like to what extent is that community input then a factor in that final decision, right? I do think sort of beyond community involvement, I think that there needs to be some structure around the decision process as a whole, that really ought to include some student-focused measures, right? Even something as simple as like we have EQS standards out there, right? Should a school be evaluated on how well or to what extent they're meeting EQS, or how those students are doing, or what opportunities they have, maybe compared to other school districts in Vermont, right? So that it's sort of an apples to apples comparison here. I would hate for students to have to bear the burden of sustaining a community because people feel that that's the only thing that they've got left before it's too much of a burden to put on kids, when really our what we need to be ensuring is that those kids are getting an adequate education, and a comparable adequate education to what other kids in the state are getting as well.
Thank you, Neil. Barbara, I see your hand up.
Two things. First, and I'm not sure exactly how to give this as input, but I think it's important for recommendations for what we do going forward be supported by data that shows that there are actually I mean, the rationale for a lot of this is saving administrative costs. And if we're gonna save costs by just giving every student, spending less on every kid, no matter what, then we'll save costs. Of course we will. But also closing schools will save costs. But we should see what the real impact in terms of savings in whatever plan somebody comes up with, because there's also been shown that lots of consolidation has cost more money because there's more administration. That's number one. Number two is I think there should be consideration given, and this was in our resolution that Gaston and I worked on the work that is being done in school districts now to look at closing schools or looking, I mean, because we have these aging school buildings that, we have to close them anyway because they're just falling apart and we need to do something. And I know in our district, we spent quite a bit of time and money and energy working with Truex Collins, and we have some plans that could be a type of consolidation, for example, but there doesn't seem to be any acknowledgement in policymakers that this has been going on all over the state. We're not the only ones, and that there should be some taken into consideration of this. And I agree with Neil that we have to see, how is this going to impact the children, and how, in terms of time on a bus and educational opportunities and everything else. So, thanks.
Thanks, Barbara. I'm going to go back to Linda. You were next, Mel. And just back to the question, the process for a community served, sorry. Hold on. A process for a community served by a school to have a voice in the decision regarding school closures and recommendations for what that process shall entail. Linda?
Communication, just keep communicating what they're doing. Constant communication over and over and over again. Whatever they do, they must communicate it, and they must do it on an almost daily basis. They must talk about it until it's ad nauseum, until the guy that's sitting in my the guy by the post office who runs this hunting and fishing place, and they sit by their pot stove and they're talking about the world, that this guy sitting there understands what is happening in the state of Vermont, and it's not it's factual. It is not hearsay. It is not made up. It is a factual piece, and They talk about it and they say it over and over and over again. Whether they put it in the newspaper, in the email, but it's got to be the same message so that everybody's getting the same message. So therefore, if there is somebody who has a problem with it, that you're not talking to somebody and somebody said, well, I read this in the Vermont Digger and I saw this on WCAX, and it's the same message, that we do not let this get away and become a message that is exploded into non-truth, because we've got so much of that going on. It's a really good opportunity for Vermont to be the one that starts speaking the message, and it's the same message. That's mine.
Great.
Thank you, Flor.
Thank you, Linda. Mel, and then Mark.
So this is super prevalent right now. We're in the process of potentially consolidating all of our elementary schools into one and building a regional middle school. It's a huge process. I'll get into that in a second, but real quick, I think first and foremost, we are a district of 9 towns and 5 schools. We formed during Act 46, and we had articles of agreement that address this specifically. I have a huge concern that articles of agreement are going to go out the window with new boards coming in. So I think it's really important that those are maintained. If there were articles of agreement at that time, especially if they addressed school closure. I can speak specifically to what we're doing, what the effect is. Our board has the final vote on school closures. However, we are required to hold a non-binding referendum in each town where school exists. Again, it's a non-binding referendum, but I can tell you that from the board's perspective, nobody is going to want to close the school if there is an overwhelming majority of people not wanting to close the school. So it is allowing us to, one, make the decision, but forcing us to communicate as much as possible with the community so that they understand why we're doing this. And Neil, I totally agree with you. We cannot allow small community schools to stay open because the adults don't know how to build community without the children. It's just not fair for them. They deserve a better education in some of these circumstances. So build a community center or use the school as a community center. So I don't mean to get so personal with it, but the amount of time I've heard that argument while I'm watching kids really struggle, it kind of breaks my heart that that's a hard thing to say. So yes, communicate. Forcing some kind of a vote, I think, requires and really helps our boards. It empowers us, and it requires us to make sure that we're communicating with our communities why we're doing what we're doing. So I think that's helpful. I think that's it. I think that's all the notes I wrote. Try to be quick and concise. And you'll hear from Herb because he knows he was part of the committee that built the Articles of Agreement too. So,
okay, great. I'm going to move to Mark. Michael, I see your hand, but you're going to have to wait until the very end. If Mark and then Joe.
Which Mark?
Sorry, Mark going. I'm like looking at Mark here, and then I'm going to let Mark.
I don't have anything at the moment to add.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I don't have anything on mind to add to the conversation.
Great. Joe?
Trouble unmuting. Really, it's mostly been covered at this point. I mean, I would love to see, I like the idea of the non-binding resolution, because, that way you can see, you can take the temperature of the town. But ultimately the decision gets made by hopefully people who are taking into account the things that matter versus, it's always been done this way. You can't, I love that quote about you can't, because you can't build community without your children. Because we have that argument down here all the time. But that and people have to be aware of what's going on and be allowed to engage in the process, whether it's through their boards or whether it's through select boards coming forward. Somebody has to be able to actually make a voice heard. But the non-binding part makes it, we've done down where I am, we've formed a red and, we've been through it all. And a lot of times people confuse having a voice in the process with thinking they get to dictate the outcome. And then that non-binding thing really struck a chord with me because it's like, look, we're going to listen to you, but that doesn't mean we're going to do what you say. That's it.
Thank you, Joe. Nancy, then Bart. And
I have really nothing to add.
okay.
That
Okay.
single person up here that with a single board.
Thank you, Nancy. Bart?
All right. Yeah, I'm not going to belabor the points that have already been brought, but love the thought of a non-binding advisory vote. In terms of hearings, I completely agree that hearings should be held in the communities that are impacted. I think we want to maybe make sure there's right structure and rules around those hearings too, like they're appropriately warned, with sufficient advance notice. Maybe we think about actual rigor around communicating those hearings, maybe actually requiring multiple public hearings appropriately spaced. I think there are a decision of this magnitude. It seems like maybe there ought to be some guardrails in place to make sure that those decisions are not made hastily. So, a hearings spaced by a month, right? Or, I know in our local articles of agreement, the board has the final say, but there actually needs to be two votes over a course of, many months to effectively close that school. I think some of those guardrails to make sure that the decisions aren't made hastily are important. And then ultimately, yeah, I think as part of the public hearing, we need to focus on, how would this decision impact student equity and student outcomes ultimately. I think that's the most important focus.
Thank you, Bart. Is Suzanne and then Mark?
I don't have a lot more to add. I just think that the articles of that we've passed around school closures really needs to be kept in place. But I think when it comes down to communication, the communication has to be clear. It has to be the same message to everyone. And decisions need to be made on real information, not someone's take on someone else's decision and then make a decision. But basing our decisions in facts. And I mean, school closures are going to happen. We're losing kids. Just kind of the way things are going. But I guess that's all I've got right now.
Thanks, Suzanne. Can I just ask a clarifying question? What you mean by articles we pass have to stay in place? You mean articles in your district?
In our district, we have articles in place that discuss school closures and how those happen. So those were agreed upon by every single town in our district. So I think it was over 80% of the voters said yes to those articles. So I think that says something, and that I would hate for some other board to come along and just throw them aside and not pay attention to what the voters at that point said.
And you're specifically talking about closure, or are you broadly talking about
school closure?
Okay.
Most of our articles
they
are
would be different in
closure.
every. I'm not trying to push it, but they would be different in every area of the state. So it'd be a little dangerous, but okay.
Right.
Michael, I mean Mark, and then Michael.
I've felt for a while that because of our census statewide, that something had to be done. My big disappointment around this is I don't think we're doing this in a very thoughtful or scientific basis. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. We have to give a lot of thought what local control means and what that means for our students statewide. When I hear from our RSCA representatives, it's all about, oh, we're losing local control. We'll no longer have a say in how well our school does. And I'm not sure if that's right or not. I think we really need to be smart about this and do it well. I could see this being very ineffective long term, or we figure it out at the end that this isn't going to work. So again, my hope is this becomes a very thoughtful and informed scientific process with good data to back up everything we do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And then before you go, Michael, I just Megan is not on camera, and I just hadn't called people not on camera. Megan, do you have anything to add? Sorry.
I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Megan. I just didn't want to skip you. Okay, Mr. Inners.
Yeah, just two points. One, I think it is possible if the board does the work to convince community that the educational quality really is best served by closing the school. It takes work and it takes sort of getting out there and making the case, but I know it can be done. So the second point is I think that we need to consider the fate of the buildings if they're closed. Our articles of agreement currently provide the building must be offered to the town for essentially $1. So essentially free. I think it's important to think about that. It would be horrible if a school was closed and a building which in many cases the town taxpayers paid for largely, particularly in, if they didn't have state aid or it was pre-Act 60, entirely locally, was then sold off by a district that they absorbed them and the money used for other purposes. So I think it's important that we look at, mechanisms for ensuring, for example, someone mentioned turn your school into a community center, make sure that's possible. And there's, provisions which make that, I would even say mandatory that it be offered to the town that the school buildings, where it's offered for sale in general.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. I think that gives us a lot of guidance and a broad, a variety of opinions, and we'll try our best to summarize that. We have one, I'm going to move right to number 11. We have new business. The Eastern Region meeting, we're able to register some additional board members from the executive committee. Because 2 members of the executive committee are not going to be able to go. We would like to open this opportunity for others that were not able to attend before. A couple of you were able to attend last year that were not on the executive committee. The meeting of the Eastern is going to happen in New York State because they're hosting it this year. And it's going to be held on October 3rd. To Sunday, October 5th at the VSBA, so at their offices in Latham, and that's in Albany, right, Sue? And the meeting begins late.
Yes, it's in Latham is right in the Albany Capital District region.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the meeting begins late Friday afternoon with a reception and a dinner, and the Saturday evening dinner is on your own. So, and they also have confirmed it. Sue, do you want to talk about what they have confirmed? Because you guys have been seeing that. Yeah.
So they have some speakers confirmed: Michael Rebel, Scott Levy, and Jay Warona as presenters. They're planning on having sessions on adequate funding for all students, the importance of civics in education, a TEAMS Teams Assessment Group activity, and a panel discussion on the status and impact of federal and state cases, court cases related to public education. And there's also going to be the NSBA Eastern Region Business Meeting.
So as I just said before, some of you had the opportunity to go last year. Jim is not able to go this year, and Bart is not able to come with us this year. So we have 2. So we thought we would open it up if the date worked, if we had some volunteers. We had Michael go with us last year.
Mark Koenig and Mark Hoffman went last year too.
And Mark Hoffman were last year. So if there were other volunteers this year, that wanted to come that are not in the executive committee. Wow, all these takers, exciting. It's really fun.
It is fun. It is fun because
It
you get to
really-
meet school board members
Should I
from all
nominate
over the
you
Northeast.
guys?
I'd
Should
be
I
happy to
nominate
go
you?
again if others
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
step up.
I would.
But it was good.
I'm open to going for the first time, learning more. I had to check my work calendar, but I'll be back from a conference.
Okay.
I'm good.
Any other new? Yeah, Mel.
Laura, Sue is asking, I'm sorry, Lisa's asking for you to give the date again. I don't think she heard
Oh,
you.
sorry. October 3rd through Sunday, October 5th. We'll be coming back on Sunday. Takers.
I think I'd have to wait and find out if I'm going to be on the board still.
Okay, so Megan is coming.
There's a comment in the chat
Oh,
floor
sorry.
from Suzanne Buck.
Okay. Okay, so why don't we leave it at that? Send Sue and myself an email if you're interested. If we have more than, we know Megan would like to go. If we have one more opening. So if you're interested, let us know. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. We thought we were going to be here. I don't even know what to do with myself. We didn't even get done so much planning for this. Like we thought it was going to be really long. I actually
Taylor
get to
Swift
go.
is on the podcast, is on Travis Kelsey's podcast. It drops at 7. I'm really excited. Now I get to watch
Oh
it.
yeah,
but
I get to go to
Taylor
my
Swift who are
son's
online.
mixer on time. So this is a gift to me too. So thank you.
Okay. Way to go.
Gonna look for a motion to adjourn so I can join the 110-degree out and walk to the campus.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for being here. All those in favor, please signify by saying goodbye.
Aye, goodbye.